What is up, gamers? Welcome back to another Predecessor video. We got a tier list for you guys. Patch 19.1 came out recently, and it's time to do a tier list covering the changes done in 19.1 and even 0.19 itself. Let's get right into this one. We of course get to start the tier list with Countess. I feel like Countess only fell off because a lot more champions now do a lot more damage, and because her playstyle is very close to melee range and you need a lot of haste, resulting into you wanting to probably build more HP oriented items alongside of course AP. For that reason, I do think she kind of falls off my tier list. I had her at A tier. Now we gotta drop her down a little bit to B tier. We move to Crunch. I think Crunch also suffers with the same issue that Countess has. Of course, he does get to abuse some of the newly buffed items like Augmentation, and I actually had a really decent build on him that I quite liked. So I do think he's a bit better than Countess. But again, just because his engage is a bit too scripted, he's going to perform really well at the early stages. After, of course, you get level 6, but after in team fights, it might be a little risky unless you start pulling people one by one and start split pushing. So for that reason, I do think he has a niche, but he's still going to remain in B tier. Moving to Dekker, a very solid support. I think probably the preferred support for people who are trying to understand the role. She is very safe. You can do a lot with her. I think she is very, very good. I don't think I have any negatives to say with her. She does kind of scale off a bit worse than other supports, so that is the one downside that she has, but she offers you quite a lot in the early game. So for that reason, I think it's only fair that we put her at A+. I think Drongo is the safest carry in the game, and it will always be, considering the kit that he has. He is very good in team fights. He scales actually pretty well now. He used to be a lane bully, but I don't think he is a lane bully anymore because of the items you build on him and the way the game is playing out in dual lane. So I do think his scaling got significantly better than what it was 4 or 5 patches ago. However, I do think that again, you kind of just have to play for 2-3 items and maybe until you have Crest, and then you can start to pop off on this champion. I do think he's very good. Of course, carries are all good, so I think it's only fair to put this guy at A tier. Feng Mao is honestly a champion that is best used on OTPs. I feel like the best people to use this champion are people who understand correctly how to space and stuff like that. I do think he is actually pretty cringe. I did have him rated at B tier before, but I think he might just be a little bit better than B tier, considering that he does have very good lane matchups on off lane. I don't think he's a jungler, by the way. I don't think if you play him jungle, you might get a good odd game here and there. I think he's pretty good in off lane. I think I'll put him at A tier, but definitely near the end of A tier. Again, OTP players will definitely perform much better though, so OTP players can actually make Feng Mao look pretty broken. We move to Gadget. Gadget has been near the bottom of my tier list for quite some time. I don't think she's bad by any means. Looking at the mid pool now, of course, we are always judging the game based on ranked games now. This tier list is for ranked, it's not for casuals, and it's also not for tournaments. I think in tournaments, in very well established comms, she will perform better. I think in ranked, she will also perform pretty decently. And of course, in casual, she will perform a bit worse. For that reason, I think it is only fair to put her at maybe at the top of B tier, but I actually think she's like really solid. Like genuinely, if there's a good lobby, if you're in a good lobby, you can definitely pull off Gadget. I think she goes definitely in A tier if you're in a good lobby, but because we're judging off rank, I think it has its ups and downs, right? Gideon, significantly nerfed from what we remember him being. I had him in S tier. I think he is still pretty good if you do play around his ultimate. If you have champions like Zarus, champions like Aurora that can lock an enemy team comp down, I think he becomes very strong. The issue with him is his damage. I think if you want to play for your ultimate, you're usually building Bracelet, so you're lowering down your damage significantly. But if you are playing full Combustion, Wraith Leggings, Noxia, and items like that, then you can do a lot more damage by your ultimate. You're usually going to be ulting through walls instead of just trying to catch people off with the ultimate, which is a completely fine playstyle, but I definitely think he fell off. I would say because of how safe he is for rank, I'm still going to rank him highly. However, I do not think that it is justified for him to be up here, if I'm being completely honest. I'm still going to put him A+, but realistically, compared to some other mid laners, he's not as good as them. It's just that he's really safe. And if he's safe, you're usually going to be good because you're still going to be able to buff in team fights and scale. So moving on to Greystone, I feel like Greystone again one of the better tanks in the patch right now. I do think some other tanks actually got a lot of buffs recently, so he does fall off just a little bit compared to other tanks. Well, the other tanks might have gotten up. He just stays around the same rating, and that rating was A. I don't think he. Maybe it was even A plus. I think I'm gonna put him A though. I feel like lower tier A tier is probably better for him now, just because there's some other tanks that I would much rather prefer than Greystone at this point. I think Grux is still Gruxing. I think he's still pretty good. I don't think he's as dominant as he once was. Still pretty strong. I'm gonna put him A plus. Of course, we all know what Grux does. I don't think I have to really mention why he's A plus, but very good lane bully. Without Blink, he's a little bit weak, but if you play corners, you might be able to succeed anyway. Moving to Howie. Howie's one of those champs that I honestly underrate quite a bit. I do think he's pretty good. I do think in more competitive style games that he can actually dish out a lot of damage. He's also pretty safe of a laner. I think it's only fair to put him at the top of A plus, where he probably belongs. I think that's a completely fair rating for Howie. A lot of people are not gonna like this rating because they just assume that Kallari doesn't work in high tier games. I feel like I have to disagree. I think Kallari is so strong right now. A lot of people don't even realize what she is doing sometimes. I feel like even though you can keep track of her, if you have a very aggressive jungler like Khaimera, maybe you can squish her away from her own camps and maybe try to put her behind. However, it's still a Kallari. If she does start getting leads, it is going to be pretty disgusting. A lot of people are sleeping on this hero. I think it is unfair to rate her so criminally low. I think I had her on A tier before. I feel like, honestly, I'm going to be putting her at A plus because I honestly think this character is pretty strong. Moving to Khaimera, I think Khaimera stays about the same. He's always going to be a solid jungle option for a lot of people. He has a self-cleanse, so that's always going to feel good. He is very strong in the early stages, and he honestly doesn't even scale that badly. A lot of good items, a lot of good on-hit items and HP items that you can build on him. So yeah, I think it's only fair to put this guy at the top of A tier, probably where I would see him, yeah. We move to Kier. I think Kier is completely insane. Probably the best ADC in the game. The only thing she lacks is wave clear, and you can just build Stormbreaker, which is probably still the meta right now on ADCs. Not probably, it is the meta still right now for ADCs. You still want to go Stormbreaker and fix her wave clear. It's not going to be perfect, but it's still pretty strong. I think she is honestly S tier, and people are honestly sleeping on her, man. I like, she has a good matchup into Grim. She has a good matchup into most ADCs. I'm trying to think what ADC doesn't do, like, does really well into her, but I cannot really think of any. I think TB does the best because he can space her, right? But that's about it. I am not a big fan of Belka. I have to put her pretty down low on my tier list. I feel like she is pretty bad right now. I'm kind of hating on her, but I feel like every time I see her, I just know that she's not going to be doing too much. She can be good if you do not get ran at by HP tanks or HP bruisers. Apart from that, if you just get ran at by one person, or even some of these heroes that have a cleanse like Kai, like Serath that can go invulnerable, like Zarus that has his ultimate, stuff like that is just going to make your life completely miserable. So yeah, I have to put her pretty down low. I think D tier is honestly justified. I'm pretty sure Morigesh is still pretty good. I don't think she is top tier by any means, but I do think that she is very good just because she can abuse these items like Noxia and Megacosm, right? Her wave clear is not amazing, but it's also not bad. It's fine to get completely shoved in the early stages. I feel like because you can also not miss too many abilities on her, it's physically impossible or nearly impossible unless you're really bad with the throw-in hives. Yeah, I think she is pretty solid. I think A tier is probably where I would rank her. I think she has some bad matchups and some good matchups. I'm going to put her around the same tier as Howie. I do think Howie's a bit safer, so I'm going to put Howie just above her. Honestly, right about here. We move to Murdock, who I do think he definitely fell off compared to other ADCs. A lot of other ADCs just do better in lane or better scaling. Of course, he still has his ultimate to be able to provide picks on mid lane or even off lane. So if you have a really aggressive solo laners, I do recommend Murdock if you think that you can get kills and start getting leads off that. And then by getting leads off the picks on the other sides of the map, you are able to maybe all in enemy ADCs or dual lanes. Apart from that, I do think he's pretty weak, so I'm going to be putting him at the top of B tier. Maybe I'm a bit harsh here. I don't know, man. It might be a bit harsh, but I'm going to put him right about here. Right, we get to talk about Muriel, who has been very much nerfed in many places, but because ADCs are so strong, I feel like even though you nerf her, she just provides too much damage mitigation on your ADCs. She does so much in lane. She has a global ultimate, so if you try to play off other lanes, she's going to be just there to deny that option, of course. But yeah, like honestly, she is still pretty strong. Rivals Dekker in the support role for sure. I think she is definitely A+. We have Narbash, who is probably rivaling Muriel in terms of a scaling support option. The issue with Narb again is that he doesn't offer as much to your carry as he does to the team. He's of course pretty good to sustain you through long team fights, but because there's so much damage, it's very hard to not get one shot. So for that reason, I have to put him a bit lower than the other supports, because what he does, he offers sustain over time, and it's very hard to get value from that if you are getting completely bursted down by the enemy team. So I do think he's good. I don't think he's really amazing. I think I'm just going to put him at A tier, just around here. We have to move to FaZe. I think FaZe does what Muriel and Narbash kind of do. It's a mixture of both. Of course, you just focus on making sure that one person gets to play, and that can be your carry in the lane, and that can also be your frontline diving into the enemy team comp and then getting him out when he's getting low. So for that reason, I think this kind of play pattern is working out really well in Pred right now. I think she's pretty good. I think I get to put her at the bottom of A+. I think that is completely fair. You could consider putting her at A, but I think just about here is completely justified. We move to Rampage, who is probably around the same where he was last time. I think he just still suffers from being bursted down because he's too tanky. A lot of things are gonna hit him. Not too tanky, too big, sorry. Because he's a big model when he does ult. A lot of things are gonna be hitting him. He's going to be taking damage from everything, and it's very hard to stay alive. I still think that he is probably played a bit wrong by the community, and you can probably perform a little bit better, but for now I'm gonna still be putting him at C tier, even though a lot of tank items have been buffed. I wish I get to see a little bit more of Revenant, because I don't think he is as bad as he was, but he's still definitely not the preferred ADC that you want to play, right? The other ADCs have more uptime, this guy really doesn't, so I'm going to put him again at C tier, which might be a little rough, but I'm going to put him ahead of Rampage this time, because I do feel that the buffs have definitely helped him. He might honestly go up to B tier, I just haven't quite seen that yet, so I'm going to put him at C tier still. We get to talk about Riktor, who I think he is about where he was when we last did our tier list, and that was A tier. I did put him at the bottom of A tier. I think he's more around the middle now because of the recent buffs to items, and that's the only thing I can really judge him off, right? He actually does pretty good scaling into HP items. So yeah, I don't think he's bad at all. Probably a support pick still, but I've had some fun running him in an off lane, although it's definitely not a lane that I recommend playing him in. I think he's just about here. I'm not a big fan of where Serath is in the meta. I do enjoy this character a lot, but it's just really rough to play as a melee hero into all of this damage. A melee hero that is trying to get resets and doesn't have the utility or the options to go items that the Feng Mao can. So for that reason, I think I am going to put her at B tier, definitely above all of these champions though, because I think she is pretty fun to play, and when you get going, there is a point where you will just snowball. You just have to close the game a bit earlier than other champions, and that is her biggest downside. I think Sevarog feels pretty strong right now. Honestly, I see people who are one tricks on him performing really well. Of course, I'm not gonna judge based off the one tricks though. I feel like I have to judge for the overall community. I think because the biggest buff, right, is the Q. The Q being buffed is what ties in his kit a lot. So if he can get the stacks earlier and he can perform earlier, I feel like he becomes a really strong. I don't think he's A+ with these hero because again, he is a tank and he does get bursted down anyway. However, I do think he does outscale enemy offlaners at a reasonable time if you are playing correctly and getting your stacks. So I'm gonna put him at the top of A tier, maybe, just maybe No, honestly, yeah, just about here. I think right in front of Khaimera. I was considering putting him behind Kai, but I think this is completely justified for Sev. One hero that is not being mentioned much is Shinbi. However, every time I do see a Shinbi play, she is popping off. I feel like she has a lot of burst. She can build HP items on herself. And although, again, the issue is that she cannot space too much because she only has double dash and it's not that insane. I still think because of the items you can go on her, which also give you damage, she's just going to be straight up a better Countess, and she does a lot of damage. She's also pretty good in lane on off lane, so I'm going to be putting her at A+, probably just about here. I think she is very slept on right now. She's pretty good. All right, let's move to Steel, who I actually think he's a better version of Sevarog. The reason I say it is he's easier to play. He does a lot to stop DPS from the enemy team. He has a lot of CC and the wall, of course. So for that reason, I think I'm going to put him ahead of the Sevarog. I think A+, around the middle is completely justified for Steel. I think he is very strong right now, and a lot of people don't realize that. He's very good in offlane. He's pretty decent in support, but realistically, you don't play him in offlane because he's very good if you need a frontline tank. He does a lot for the team. We move to Faye, who is heavily underrated by everyone who plays the game. I think she is pretty good. She has some good matchups, like into Howitzer, for example. I think she is very good because she can abuse items like Noxia, items like Megacosm and Tainted Scepter with ease. She is very good at applying all the debuffs, and her ultimate is pretty decent, but a lot of people just assume that because they have cleanses or stuff like that, you just become useless because your ultimate is not valuable. Her just base damage to her normal basic abilities is just so strong. It's kind of insane. The only downside she has is that she's very fragile to gank, so if she gets put behind, it's gonna take her a bit longer to scale up, but she's pretty good. I think A tier, no A plus, sorry. I think A tier is justified on her as well. I think she goes, in my opinion, my personal opinion, she goes ahead of Howie, but a lot of people are going to disagree. I just think she is very underrated. We move to Twinblast, who basically what I said about Kira honestly goes for TB. The difference between Kira and TB is that Twinblast has a much better wave clear than Kira does. However, Kira does scale a bit better. The rest, they kind of do pretty similarly. I do feel like Kira might be just a little bit better. So for that reason, I am going to put him A+. I think I just put him. I think I get to put him at A+ right behind Dekker, maybe even in front if I'm being honest, but honestly, this is just about fine. Right, Zarus, although he got heavily nerfed, still completely broken because of that ultimate. He just does so much in team fights, it's kind of insane. His laning is pretty good because of the short RMB cooldown, and of course the 2x damage. I think they keep nerfing this champion, but they're realizing how strong he still remains. I think he's still completely insane, so I am going to put him again in S tier. I don't think my opinion changes much on this hero. He is still absolutely broken. We move to Sparrow, who a lot of players assume is the best carry in the game. I just don't see it. I think she is pretty good. I just don't think she is the carry. I think both Kira and Twinblast do a better job. I think there's some other carries who can also rival her that I haven't mentioned yet, like Grim. I do think she's good. Again, kind of on the similar boat of Faye, where it just feels like you can definitely abuse her unsafe laning, but she scales very well. Probably, of course, the best ADC to scale, but it just takes time, just like the FA would. So I'm just gonna put them just about the same. I think this is a fair spot for Sparrow. We get to move to Wraith now, who I think is also underrated by the community. I think the last changes actually made him play much better. I still think the build path is a bit whack, having to finish resolution, but it's completely fine because I do think he has a lot of damage, a lot of one-shot potential if played against the right team comp. I think there's things that can very much counter him, which is really rough. But if you are very good at spacing the enemy, again, kind of the same thing for all carries, but him a bit more because he has much more long range and also not as safe as the other carries, so you actually need to space even better on him. I still think like OTPs make this champion look really insane. I'm again not gonna base off OTPs, but I think he's very good. I think A tier is honestly justified for him, and I think I am going to put him just in front of Morigesh. I think this is completely for Wraith. Definitely being undervalued by the community. Alright, we get to move to Iggy again, another champion that got 2 nerfs in a row. I still think he's probably the best mage in the game. I am considering put him S tier, but he honestly might be A plus at the pinnacle of A plus, just because he did get decently nerfed. I just think this champion is completely insane anyway. He has too much lane pressure, and of course he's just absolutely insane in team fights. So this rating is only justified in my opinion. Move to Kwang, who has suddenly turned from like being completely average at A or maybe even A plus to being absolutely insane. He got a lot of boosted damage in the last 2 patches. Building honestly any sort of damage on him just feels absolutely insane. He just starts shredding people with like, it's unfair is what it is. It's completely unfair. I think he might be A plus, but I'm gonna put him S tier because I'm just seeing too much of Kwang and he's just performing too well with so many different builds that I think this is correct. Argus is somebody that I have kind of been shitting on for the past few tier lists. I do actually much rather have an Argus than a Belica, so he's definitely not going to go down here. I have been seeing him in support and it has actually been surprisingly good. I've been seeing people perform pretty well on him. I don't think he's insane by any means, but I do think he is pretty good. So for that reason, I am going to put him B tier. I do think I get to put him B tier behind the Crunch, but honestly has definitely surprised me. And yeah, I do actually want to see a bit more Argus supports in my games because I think it's pretty interesting. Move to Grim, who was crowned the best ADC for the last few patches. I do think he is definitely one of the strongest ADCs again. I do think he's better than Twinblast, but I actually don't think he is better than Kira. Probably still goes at A plus next to the Iggy. Yeah, the Iggy. I was gonna say Grim by mistake. I confused these 2 champions. But yeah, I think that is honestly a completely fair rating, considering that although he's been nerfed significantly, he can still walk you down with the E. He still has a lot of damage. He is still pretty safe, and a lock on ultimate just to finish people off as a cherry on top. It's kind of insane. Right, we move to Aurora, something that you see change. I changed phase ratings because I do think I actually rated her a bit too highly compared to the other supports. I don't think she's on the same level of Dekker and Muriel. I still think she is very strong, so that is why she's on high A plus. But moving to Aurora, I think Aurora is very strong. I don't think she is better in offlane, and some people might disagree. I think she is a fantastic jungler. She can force ganks really well. She can play choke points very well as well. So I think at the bottom of A plus, maybe just in front of Gideon, is where I would probably rank this hero, and I think it's completely fair. We move to the newly released hero, or the latest released hero. It's been a few weeks now that we have been playing with her, and I think she is very strong. She's getting probably banned 85% of my games in ranked, so there's a reason for that. She is very good at being a lane bully in offlane and very good at early skirmishes. I do think she scales a bit weaker than some of the other frontliners, but honestly everyone has something bad going for them, right? So even though I think she is a bit worse in team fights, I still think she is absolutely insane, and for that reason I am also going to put her at S tier, and this is going to be my tier list for patch 19.1. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with my tier list. I will see you tomorrow for another Predecessor gameplay video. Peace out, gamers, and have a good one.